we're into our third series, so please keep an eye on your series calendar every month, as we'll be hosting different technology experts who are leaders in their fields. They'll share their passion and what they see being the future of hot technologies in data, AI, cloud, and so much more. Your voice is an important part of the show, so please submit your questions at any time in the live chat, either just to the right or below the video feed, and don't forget to stick around towards the end for the Q&A. So, a few weeks ago, we met Metaverse expert Sharon Joseph, who is founder and CEO of Crewasis, a data company that has been helping clients take their first steps into the Metaverse. Sharon, last time around, we boldly stepped into the Metaverse, figuratively. Today, we're going to be literally stepping in, or at least our avatars will. So are you ready to take a walk?
Greg, I am ready and very excited for today. I think the biggest thing is realizing how big the Metaverse is right now, but that we're still in its early stages. I think we talked about a little bit about the stats. So it's the Metaverse is 40 billion, projected to be 800 billion by 2028. And Decentraland is where we're headed today. And I'm super excited to be doing this with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very exciting. So, and this is a live show today. So for the audience, when we say live, we mean live. We're in Decentraland. We're going to be walking around. And Sharon, I think we are now here in the Metaverse. So we should be able to see, our audience will be able to see us. So for those of you that don't recognize my avatar, I will turn around and you'll see I'm dressed quite snappily in black and have the black sunglasses. And I somewhat boringly, it's not showing my name right now, but I somewhat boringly named my avatar Greg. You are dressed in yellow top, and you are Satoshi Sunshine.
Yeah, so Coinbase's founder was Satoshi, so that's why I use that. And everyone says I have a very positive personality, Greg. So I had one of my good friends that he actually does a lot in the crypto space. We talked about this for about 3 minutes on what I should be named. Seems like I'm walking away from you, but I don't mean that on purpose.
Well, I'm doing a wave just to connect with the audience. So let me turn back and connect with you. So Satoshi, you are walking around. Again, this is live. Lots of fun. So Sharon, or should I call you Satoshi? Well, there's lots of people walking around and we're in a casino. So we've joined in the Metaverse in Decentraland. We're in a casino. As discussed last time around, there are many different Metaverse experiences out there. We chose Decentraland for today. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so one of the things to kind of think about is the size of each of these. And Decentraland is one of the top 5. On Decentraland, or in Decentraland, I should say, we use Mana. And Mana right now is exchanging at per US dollar $6.15. And the highest that it's been that is one of the highest it's been. So it's all through Ethereum, and obviously the monetary, I guess, connection that I would say is that the Mana version of money in Decentraland is what is used to buy anything. So if we look around where we are, we know that we're in a poker room, and so they're using actual cryptocurrency and Mana to be able to be here and actually participate. So a couple other cool facts there. We were talking about this earlier. There are only about 8,000 to 10,000 daily users, so unique users a day. We were working at the stat that we're, 3 of us in here today, so that's 0.004%. So we're definitely on the new, in terms of new adoptive learners and innovators, we're in there.
Okay, fantastic to know. As I panned around a little bit for the audience, so just to see, so yeah, we're in a casino. As you expect, there are loads of people walking around. There seems to be some action going on. And you're somewhere out there. I think you've gone for a walkabout, Sharon. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stroll on over to one of the tables, and we'll kind of have a discussion around there. So I've strolled over to table 4 in the casino. The gentleman dealing the cards is a frog in this case, which is the kind of thing that happens in the Metaverse. But again, this is live, so people could jump in and find us if they were inclined, right? If they came into Decentraland to the exact coordinates where we are right now, they would see me standing around this table and you walking around, right? It's a live experience, very immersive.
Yeah, so the one thing we had said was everybody, and one of the number one places to go is Genesis Plaza, because you start there, and we had started there and we explored. There wasn't a lot to show everyone. The most expensive land is also around Genesis Plaza because it's going to have the most amount of traffic. The lowest I think you can buy land for in Decentraland is around 10,000. And one of the things you and I uncovered was that this ice poker is one of the top 10 places to go in Decentraland. I definitely didn't mean to wander around, by the way, while we were doing it. So this is also what happens. But
we had
16.
Yeah, we had noticed it's easier to get into Decentraland than it is to find each other and stay together in Decentraland. That's definitely something we'd observed in our many practice runs at this. So Decentraland, we chose Decentraland. We thought it would be an easy, again, last time we spoke about the metaverse, this time we're in it. We're not all the way in because we're not in like a Horizon Worlds. You don't need any hardware to join this. All you need is a web browser. You can download the app. You can go in and join it. I guess the first question for our audience that I'm sure is in their minds is, okay, this is interesting. You're in a casino. This seems like a game. I mean, what makes this a metaverse experience and not a game? What would your answer be to that?
Yeah, I think when you look at the reasons the metaverse is around and the future of digital worlds and why brands even enter, one is because of the sense of community. So all of a sudden you're in a very unique space with other people that have a similar interest. And so a lot of times too, things that have progressed have been because of gaming or other areas. So if you think of Web 1 and Web 2 and the reasons they came about, and actually the number one reason why people want to start entering Metaverse is because of work opportunities. So I think there's a lot to say about how many people are going to be entering over the next few years. And I think the stat is that 25% of people will spend at least 1 hour a day in the metaverse by 2024. So 2024 to 2028. So that makes me feel very optimistic about what things are going to be happening in that space. I mean, we're going to talk about future of work a little bit more, but
that is interesting. So let's talk about that now, because in the research for this, we found out that the casino, someone else's one, so 130 chips. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, but there's a live action happening in this casino. When we were doing our research, it was a very interesting article about a company that similarly had a casino in Decentraland, but the difference with their casino was they were actually paying real people to staff the floor in that casino. And I think what they would do, they had a live floor manager and live people. So, again, everyone we're seeing here, apart from the dealers in this casino, are actual people. They were paying people. I mean, that is akin to having a job in the metaverse. So what do you think about the future of jobs in the metaverse?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that came up, because I said that there's all this work opportunity, one of the main reasons companies look at the metaverse is for the possibility of training and development. And so we saw that because if you think about the first metaverse we talked about in this last call, it was around aviation industry and pilots. And I think that when you look at the stats on all of this, approximately 1 billion people by 2030 are going to need to be reskilled on this. And the earlier you get in, the better. So I think that if I think about where we're going with the spaces that could accelerate, obviously work in general and training and development in fields like healthcare, art and live entertainment was really what was pushing it. NFTs really focused on art. Fashion came about with digital wear and digital goods. Then there's this concept of money and investment, because obviously a lot of it is fueled through crypto. Education in general, and where I think we had looked at a few spaces where we were talking about the education with healthcare, but just a consumer going in and being able to educate themselves and someone else getting feedback on that would be so helpful. The other piece is that, of course, online dating and socializing.
I was going to say,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, is what makes this so compelling the fact that it's so immersive? I mean, that's why it's different to getting together on Facebook, right? Not to mention other social media platforms do exist as well. But this is way more immersive, arguably, than some of those experiences.
Yeah, immersive in community, which comes to community and building something a little bit more of beyond. You and I have met virtually. We've gone in here together, and we've actually had an adventure now, right? We've gone into a few places, and I think we're probably going to go into a few more today.
We are, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were talking about some of those other kind of social kind of scenarios playing out in the metaverse. But getting back to jobs, I mean, again, going back to the discussion around the actually having people man the floor in a casino, it's interesting that that's the reverse of the trend happening in the real world, which is real people's jobs being taken over by bots. And yet in the metaverse, we're seeing some of the opposite happening, which is actually, some of these automated non-player character type experiences would be taken over by real people because they can interact with you socially in a way that, the automated bots aren't quite there yet. So there's a need for that. So obviously in the metaverse, there's going to be a need for things like coders and very technical jobs, the designers to create these experiences. But you mentioned some of the others. So, things like dating, maybe things like, we know esports is a big thing. So there's a lot of interaction in these experiences, these gamified experiences by people that are now becoming esports stars in the same way that we have athletes that are stars.
Yeah, there's kind of, to your point, Greg, 7 ways that brands want to enter into the metaverse. And I mentioned before, we worked on a case study. It was the first case study through Harvard Business School, which is teaching the concept of Web3 and brands stepping into the metaverse. And it happens to be a fashion retail brand. And there were 3 scenarios that we ended up with. One which is, you're going to create digital pieces to enter in. So you're not going to own or develop, but you're going to create a piece. And we see what we're wearing right now. So it makes sense that you might want to upgrade from the basics that are there. 2 is actually partnering with somebody. So partnering with, say, Sandbox or Decentraland and having an engagement that way. And then 3 is building your own. So you could actually build your own metaverse on your own site. Just this is hosted on as a web portal, and you don't need a headset. So there's all these areas that brands are entering. And then the concept of, gamification you mentioned, there's all this element of community building and experiences. There's the concept of, bridging the gap between physical and digital. And that's one of the biggest things that brands are going to look at right now. And I know we've seen a few things within this space that are advertisements for various brands that I think we should look at right now.
I was on mute. So funny you mentioned that. While we're talking, I was going to just go and shoot over to one of those experiences. So there was a funny story. We were walking around the casino and we saw what I can explain. So Hillshire Farms was advertising in this casino, and they had like a little stand where you could walk up to and see some of their products. Again, this is product placement in a casino. And you could actually click on this little experience, and it would then take you out of the casino and you'd shoot over to a Hillshire Farms brand experience. So that's where I'm busy teleporting to at the moment. I'm going to go over and see what that looks like. But it's interesting to see that all of the kind of product placement type ideas that you have in newspaper and all the other kinds of media, television, in this sort of environment, it's that much more immersive and real, and it's something you can interact with, right?
Yeah, it's crazy because I wasn't sure how well people in general, and especially if you think about age demographics, again, Greg, so if we look at the person who's in there, and especially since Roblox is one of the #1 spaces, it's a lot of gaming and it's a lot younger. So it's almost Gen A, Gen Z. So if we think about 15-year-old and younger in Roblox, we have to think about also, you have to think about regulations and security and privacy. So when you go into a space like this and you're thinking about branding, you want the engagement and the interaction to be true to the brand, but you're also giving out an opportunity to develop a relationship with somebody that you wouldn't normally have in the real world. So I see we're at the welcome sign and you're going to talk to him.
we are. So again, we wanted to kind of walk up to the little stand in the casino, but that vanished. So it looks like things are still in flux somewhat in the metaverse. So I don't know if their slots had expired. But anyway, we're now in the Hillshire Farms experience. So I'm going to actually hand over to our cameraman who's just joined me, and he's going to go for a little bit of a walkabout in the Hillshire Farm experience. So again, we've done something you can only do in the metaverse. We've gone from a casino and we've now gone to a farm. Let's talk about brand experiences. So I wasn't aware of the Hillshire Farms brand. I guess everything that I've learned about Hillshire Farms has been from interacting with the Still experience, which is interesting. You're being exposed to their brand in a fun way. And I guess for those that don't know Hillshire Farms, they are a meat products, deli cuts. I don't know too much more about the full range of products, but if you walk around the farm, you get a sense for their brands, what their brands feel, some of the information about the farm, and you can do it in a way which is having fun. So the cameraman kind of pans over to the right there. Yeah, you were looking to the right, and you'll see there's a number of mini games which we'd noticed, and mini games in kind of a metaverse concept are, again, this is where we blur the line between metaverse experiences and something that's a game. But they are literally a little game that lets you interact with an experience, right?
Yeah. So when I think about a couple things, so brands aren't 100% sure yet, Greg, on how to measure it, but we know that success in digital spaces is around sharing, engaging, and socializing within the platform. So although somebody is looking at, say, the number of visitors or the total number of visitors, the real success metric is on those. And also looking at, if you're purchasing something, is it from an actual physical object to digital, or vice versa? I was talking about the 7 ways for branding. And so we see here gamification, brand experience. We didn't see anything from an NFT or collectible standpoint as my number 3. The whole shopping experience. I don't think you can buy anything.
Well, actually, speaking about shopping, so
yeah.
What our cameraman's doing now is he's chatting to one of the, what would you call these? This is a non-player character, but he's basically a brand ambassador. And the brand ambassador has told him that if you go and interact and play the mini games, you would earn barn bucks. So you can then use those to purchase some of these collectible experiences within there were some outfits being shown on the screen. If the cameraman just goes over, there we go. So we've got some outfits that are being shown there. So you can take those barn bucks, and then and you can even try them on as the cameraman's doing right now. Lovely.
Love it.
I don't think it's a good fit though. But there we see, so you've interacted with the brand, you've learned, you've experienced some of their brand, they're making an imprint upon you, but also you're starting to now spend some currency, which is unique to their brand. I mean, they've got barn bucks. That's not mana. This is unique to their brand.
Yeah. And the next best thing would be that he could then jump to a virtual event, so that you would get invited to a virtual event and start having some way to interact, to potentially shop even further for actual live products, and then customize your avatar. And then you have this stronger sense of community, because you might meet other people there that have similar taste and preferences. And everyone also usually goes a little more on the extreme side. I mean, you saw my avatar. I'm wearing futuristic glasses. I have pigtails. I don't remember the last time I had pigtails, but you're going to move to something that's a little bit more, on the innovative side versus what you'd buy in real life or do in real life.
Yeah. And actually, just talking, I want to relate this to something that maybe some of the folks that know Prolifics well will know. That's, one of our sets of expertise is in application integration. And to very quickly relate what we've just seen to something like application integration, you can imagine, I mean, we saw barn bucks being discussed there. You can imagine a brand with loyalty points, loyalty points where you actually earn those points in store, and actually having those loyalty points exposed in a metaverse experience like this. And you would still need the nuts and bolts of a application integration solution to make that kind of thing happen. I mean, you can imagine, again, back-end system could even be on a mainframe. You could still have loyalty points stored in the mainframe. You would need that kind of integration between these experiences and those data points that might live in, again, some very non-metaversey kind of systems.
Yeah, because the elements of the metaverse are quite complex, Greg, to your point. And so if you think about all the things you have to think about, which is digital currency, the marketplace, the NFT infrastructure, device interdependence, the gaming and digital assets, all these things are things that you don't want to specialize in as a brand, and you want to partner to be able to get all that stuff done and then just be able to focus on what the experience is for the brand, which is more around the social elements, the online shopping, the entertainment and the experience. And even, when I think about data in this space, there's so much that you can be using, because not only is it you traveling around, but you can do eye tracking. NLP can be used based on what you're typing in the chat box, and even the discussion, the dialogue you have with an avatar, because all that can be collected. And we saw how many users there were daily, so it's still early stages, but you can still pick up a lot of information from that.
So loving the Hillshire Farms experience. Again, I'm sure our audience has now learned a little bit about Hillshire Farms, and maybe we've done a bit of imprinting the brand on them. We're going to stick with the farmyard theme, but we're going to take it in a slightly different direction. We're going from the farm and we're going to go to the hen house. So I don't know if our cameraman is going to take us there, or what I'll do is I will also see if I can, because I'm on the way there. Actually, while I'm talking about that, one of the things in Decentraland is we're cheating for this discussion, because although we're doing this all live, and this is very live, we're not walking through these experiences, because Decentraland is big. What was it, 90,000 plots, and I think they're 16 by 16 each. So what they want you to do is actually just walk through these experiences and discover experiences, because that's what you would normally do. So they don't provide you with shortcuts, although there is there's a catalog of experiences you can go and check out, but you can't search through it. They want you to literally find things, go discover, go explore, and interact with things in that way. So anyway, what I'm doing is I'm teleporting over to the next experience, which is I think certainly unique in what I've seen. But while I'm doing that, we've got a live question come through on the chat. So the Metaverse looks like the beginnings of a very bright future. What is currently in place to ensure that there's minimal level of antisocial behavior?
Great question. I mean, we'll never be able to minimize antisocial behavior, because I think one of the things I saw, I went home to spend some time with my best friend, and her 15-year-old and her even younger child were in there doing their thing, right? And so antisocial in terms of us, but they're socializing with their friends in the platform, because they're meeting each other, and they've created these avatars, which we see. I mean, Greg, you and I are going to have a discussion. We're going to hang out and do stuff that we wouldn't normally do together, because you're in South Africa right now and I'm in New York. So there's no way you and I would be able to hop in and go to a casino together, or for that matter, Hen World, right? So
exactly. So speaking of Hen World, here we are. Yeah, so this wasn't an intentional farmyard theme that we were running with, but it just so happened that we wanted to look at a healthcare related experience, and they've chosen to use hens as the physicians, which is interesting. So what we're going to do is take a little bit of a walk around. I'm gonna walk over to the left over here, and you'll see there's a number of experiences within the experience that we can interact with. This one's called Fighting Stigma, and I've got the choice of clicking on a few different experiences. I clicked on the depression experience, and this basically will allow us to start interacting with a little bit of, I don't know, how would you want, education around depression, and I guess creating understanding that depression is a very real thing that people do struggle with. So here we go. Fact, there's a myth that depression develops at a certain age. It's a fact that it can develop at almost any age. Even adolescents and children as young as 3 years can experience depression. Now, if you browse around these experiences, you can pick up a lot of information, and again, all doing it in a way that's kind of immersive, and you have choice to engage or not engage with these experiences, and it's very immersive again.
So I guess the thing that I think about in healthcare, and we all saw it in the last sort of 3-4 years, is the need to reimagine the healthcare experience and space. And so what I think in the Metaverse brings is not just incremental change, but exponential change. And it's because the immersive element, right? And so imagine previously your doctor-patient engagement would have been one visit that you would have. And all of us can say, like, when was the last time you went to see your doctor? I go once a year, and that's the only time I want to engage. But yet we all believe that health is the number one critical thing globally in multiple studies that have been done, Gartner, Forbes, et cetera, that our health is the number one priority that we should be taking care of. Yet we're not doing enough about it. So I feel like this is where we're going to see the one big industry that's going to exponentially change is healthcare. And that there's this concept of like this doctor-patient experience, right? And that, you know, not only can you go through, if you think about physical therapy, rehabilitation, condition awareness, allowing a doctor to understand how their patient's journey is probably one of the most important things from their role and what they do want to know, and they're just not given the time or the opportunity to do that. But if they got a dashboard that said, hey, here's what's going on with patient X, you know, Bobby, he's, you know, just been diagnosed with a condition, diabetes, and he needs to understand what he should be eating, what he should be paying attention to from a health care perspective. And then all of a sudden you're able to track that could actually change someone's life, right? So I think when I think of all of the examples of where this could really help, it's this convergence of new technology and a space that is, I mean, definitely far ahead of where we are, but using fun. It's fun, right? We're in a space that we would never be in, and we have chickens teaching us.
I'm guessing the chickens were to make it non-threatening, right? Who feels threatened by chickens? So it's interesting that they chose to choose chickens as their avatars.
Yeah.
But you know, again, we're not necessarily saying that this is the be-all and end-all of a healthcare experience, but it definitely gives you some cues as to where the metaverse and these kinds of experiences can play. Again, why this is different to just a disconnected, 3D experience is if somebody else walked into the same space, we could have a discussion, and even better, if we had some actual physicians in this space, they'd be able to provide additional healthcare advice as well. So it's more about creating that space and that experience that could be transformed.
We all agreed that telemedicine, right? How great was that you didn't have to go somewhere, that you could actually have a phone call, especially the last few years. And I don't know, Greg, had you used telemedicine then in the last few years?
Yeah, not before COVID, but yes. Yeah. Since then, absolutely.
And this could be telemedicine 2.0, because some things you can't explain on a phone call or on just a face video. But if you could actually have somebody show you how to wrap a bandage or how to do something to control something that's happened in an emergency to be able to save a bit of time, I think there's a lot of tools and ways that this could be in treatment and also just patient management.
So there's actually, just on that point, again, broadly under the term metaverse, not everything's a experience like this. Metaverse could also include things like digital twin and you going in to see an actual doctor in his place of work and him being able to use a digital twin of you, which would literally be a digitized 3D version of yourself. And imagine he could have a conversation with you about your ailments by actually zooming into your body and showing you exactly what that looks like. I mean, he could have a much more meaningful and engaging discussion with you, and I'm guessing would leave more of an impression than showing you a two-dimensional X-ray.
Yeah, and imagine if you were a doctor was able to create the safe space to explain how you might be impacted by some sort of condition and show you in 5 years, this is what could happen and give you scenarios. Then all of a sudden something that you've been dealing with becomes an effective, like one of the realest things you could see, right? So I think it could revolutionize preventative medicine, because both of us, Greg, would change our opinion if we fast forward and all of a sudden we're like, oh no, this is what would happen if I didn't eat a fully balanced, nutritious meal or didn't exercise, or, and the list goes on depending on what you were diagnosed with. So it's almost like you can create these guinea pigs that you're using your digital avatar to show that. And then it also extremely personalized. The other thing we forget is a lot of things that are done are not as personalized because you just don't have time. And essentially when you have a whole bunch of data on the back end, being able to feed something, then you create this personalized experience, which from a patient standpoint improves the patient journey.
So some very interesting potential directions for healthcare in, again, what we'll broadly call the metaverse. How'd you like to play a game? I don't know if you were keeping track. I've now they advertised some mini games in this healthcare experience, and we're about to take part in a game. So I'm going to randomly choose one of these. I think we're going to be quizzed. So let's choose, how well do you know your cells? Pick a level. I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying university or med school. Should we go for high school level of knowledge?
Let's do it.
Although at least if we, I guess if we chose med school, we'd have an excuse for not getting them right. Okay, I'm going to choose university. I'm going to select a university level. Let's start. So let me just
you're a risk
orientate. Taker. I am. So question number one, pick a part. And I'm going to let you ladies first.
Oh my goodness. Cytoplasm for 500. We're already at cytoplasm. That's crazy, Greg. How do we jump through 5 years of...
Okay, cytoplasm. Nope. I'm going to go for microvilli, if I'm even pronouncing that. Nope. Well, we're going to go two left.
Okay, we have two left. Let's see. Ribosomes. I can't really see what it's pointing to, but
there we go. Well done.
Yeah.
Okay. Question two, and I'm hoping there's not too many. We've got 5 questions, so we might have to go through quickly so we don't. I'm gonna save us our blushes. Oh, lucky guess there.
Oh wow.
I'm gonna save us our blushes by somewhat randomly choosing some answers, so that we don't get hung up too much.
Yeah, having too much fun, really. But imagine too, a med student being able to go in and then have like a full tour of something versus a textbook.
Yeah. Okay, that's definitely the nucleus, right? Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. What's inside the nucleus? Our audience is screaming the right answer at us.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for helping us.
Okay, so we completed the game, and we even found out how we ranked in the leaderboard. But I think we're going to move on in the interest of time. But I've got to put in a captcha. That's funny. Captcha even comes up in the metaverse. Can you see that on my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to bother. We've already taxed the brains enough. So let's go into let's go back down to the first floor. And I think we're going to move off to our next experience. So we've talked, well, actually, before we did that, there was something I wanted to come back to. And maybe we'll save that for while we're teleporting to the next experience, which the next experience is going to be something totally different. So I'm taking us on over there. While I'm doing that, can we talk briefly? We spoke about the whole digital twin idea and how that could make things much more immersive in terms of how to talk about a patient's current or future potential ailments. Might there be a role, though? I mean, to do that, we're going to need to have actual clinicians manning the station, as it were, inside these experiences. So would there still be a role? Maybe we spoke about how the fact that actually having people in there would be quite good, but would there still be a role for bots to maybe work alongside human physicians? So I guess what I'm trying to say, in a somewhat long-winded manner, the metaverse is a big place. I think there are roles for people. I mean, even jobs for people to play in the metaverse. Is there still a role for automation? So some of these experiences are automated. We know that bots are becoming more and more intelligent and can do many things that up until now we never thought they'd be able to. Is there still a role for that kind of automation in these metaverse experiences?
Yeah, so I think if we go back to what a digital twin is, right, which is a computer-generated image of a person, and we said in a form of an avatar here, which is you're right there, there's data that we wouldn't be able to get, Greg, from you as the person in the room right now. But we're able to follow your digital twin through this space and get a lot of information about you. So I think there's a huge amount of requirement from not only engineering, but a data science standpoint to be able to understand that data, compare it to other people. It's still early stages, I mentioned before, But if you're able to explain something and give an explanation through an avatar and track that information and that journey, then you have something more than what you had before. So automation comes in right there. Also,
so again, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no.
Well, I was going to, before you continue, I was going to relate that to something that we do all the time as Prolifics. So again, for folks that know Prolifics well, we do a huge amount of work in business process automation, or just business automation in general. So it sounds like in the metaverse, there's going to be a role for those kinds of technologies.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about the concept of one having to track all of this and make sense of it all, nobody has time to do that. So having somebody that is an expert in that area and being able to mine all that data and put together a story is still relevant here. And automation comes when you have a lot of that data to be able to then forecast or predict. And that's still a big part of data science and overall understanding where you want to go, because predictive analytics is really where, has been something that's been important for the last 10 years, and then will continue to grow. And this space is amazing, by the way, Greg. We haven't even talked about this.
It is. So we've just arrived. Our cameraman has moved ahead, and he teleported there, got there ahead of me. So he is in the Marimekko flower field. So this is another brand experience. I thought this one was quite subtle. That's why I thought we might want to go there. So I didn't know much about the Marimekko brand. Did you?
No, I didn't even know what it was, but I loved it already.
Yeah.
The poppy.
So they're a Finnish textiles, clothing, and furnishings company. And they developed a very distinctive style in the 60s. So those poppies are very much part of their brand image. And it's very distinctive, and they're very well known for it. So our cameraman's speaking to their brand ambassador, and the brand ambassador is going to tell us a little bit more about Marimekko and the brand. So again, this is a way of us, we've arrived here, we looked at the poppies, all very interesting, and we're now finding out about the whole backstory of where it's come from. And I think it's just such a subtle way of leaving a brand impression on someone in a way that's very different to, again, television or even product placement in a movie. This is pretty subtle, but also quite immersive. And I keep using the word immersive, but it really, I think, nails how this is different to other equivalents.
Well, I think what you get here is something that's it showed when we came in here. I think we knew the first time that there's definitely something to do with the brand and the poppy that's important. And not only that, just the way that things were put together, we thought of a creative fashion brand. And this was before us even knowing really what it was. And then I know we were talking to a few folks in here and seeing what would you do and how would you engage with it. And it was almost so simple, yet very brand experience-wise. Yeah. We were like, it's so simple that you don't have to do something tremendous in this space. You can keep it super simple and start to enter, at least test. And that's the one thing I tell a lot of brands, Greg, is that we're at such an infancy stage. We talked about how many users there are here in Decentraland, which, Sandbox, Decentraland, all those ones are areas where you want to start testing. And we had picked, your team had picked Decentraland, which I loved going in because I'd been into Horizon Worlds, and this was going to be a really new and exciting space to be in. And it is about the experience in brands versus gaming, for example, which is where Sandbox, I'd say, plays. And so if I was a brand, I'd be looking at how do I explore this space and get my consumers in here to start engaging in a different way. They should be, there's so many things that they could do here. There's a net capturing all those poppies.
Yeah, so our cameraman's being distracted and going off into other experiences, which I don't blame him for, because there's always something just on the horizon to go and take a look at. But and I don't know if the audience noticed, the cameraman had walked up to the brand ambassador. We heard the whole story about Marimekko, and she also suggested that there was a collectible for us to go and collect. So, and actually, the cameraman had walked up to this little island that pops up, and if you go and take a look at it again, there's a bucket hat, branded bucket hat with the Marimekko, some branding on it. And he can go and collect that and take it away. But the interesting thing here is, again, that's another click. It's another point of interaction. But also, if he was to take that hat, and I think you get it later because it needs to be minted, then and you then wear it around in Decentraland, then all of a sudden you're now a brand ambassador for Mary Mecca, because you're walking around with some of their branding and everyone's going to see you.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. I mean, this leads into things around what we also talked about, which is how you go into a fashion show or enjoy something new in the metaverse, which is, you know, the first ever fashion week happened last year, this year in March. And think about all the big brands that started looking at it, like Vogue, and they started creating this concept of going in here and having a little more excitement and interest in their brand and their fashion through an immersive experience.
So I want to come back to that, but very briefly, all of these interaction points are data. So there's the term digital experience analytics, which has been around for a while, and that just shows how you interact with the normal user experience. But digital experience analytics in the metaverse really takes us to the next level. So you can use all of this information to enrich, you know, big organizations talk about a 360-degree view of their customers. Again, I want to relate it to things that Prolifics does all the time for our clients. All this data is going to require things like data lakes, data warehouses, lake houses. It's going to require analytics. But it's also going to require things like data governance. You know, all this data is going to need to be governed, and things like data privacy are going to be just as important. As soon as you start linking people real people to these, you know, the avatars, or even linking it to profiles. You know, things like just the key components of a data strategy that organizations need to deal with. In any case, that'll need to be expanded and extended when you start moving into the metaverse.
Agree. Great, because there's so much complexity. It's another, you know, element to a brand and what they're doing when you think about everything that's slowly merged in digital and web 2.0 with social, web 1.0 just putting up a website, and now we're in this immersive. You have to think about everything that surrounds it. So it's pretty exciting, though.
It is certainly exciting. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move over to our last experience, because I know we will be running short on time, but we'd be pretty tired if we were walking around on this tour, I must say. So we're going to teleport again, and I guess we'll see who gets there first, whether it's me or whether it's our cameraman. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share from my side and give our. Oh no, I don't want to do that. We'll just share the window, and I'll give my producer the opportunity to zoom in on that if necessary. So there we go. I'm there already. Fantastic. Padded for time. We're now in a fashion experience. Mm-hmm. So you started talking about the Metaverse Fashion Week, and actually I didn't get the privilege of attending that in person or virtually, but there were big brands. So it was DKNY, Tommy Hilfiger, Dolce & Gabbana. I mean, these were big brands that were getting their clothes out there in Fashion Week. And I believe you could buy digital clothes based on what you saw, and then you'd have the real versions shipped to you. I don't know if that was, I'm assuming, after the show. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Decentraland was the first one. It was Metaverse Fashion Week. It was in March. And it was something that, you know, for the fashion industry received more attention than anything had in the past. So it was a huge explosion for them. And then when you think about it, you had to use real estate to be able to show these fashion shows. So if you think about profit within the metaverse, owning property means that you can drive profitability because you can rent it out. You can use it for your own brand. You can have this virtual exhibition, which what a fashion show is. And then you have consumers interacting with your products and trying them on, which is always a fun thing. Everybody wants to try on something new before they purchase it. And when you think about this starting in this space, this 2022, the organizer for Decentraland was somebody called Giovanna Graziosi Casimelio. And the whole concept here was like, it's just the beginning of it. He had quoted and said that there's plenty of time for us to like make bigger moves and bigger steps. And so I don't have the number on how much was spent, but to your point, like all the big brands have been using it. Fashion entered first into a lot of these spaces. and the concept of NFTs and being able to own something, and the creator economy, which we haven't touched on as much, but this is also an ability to give people who are creating something the prospect of future revenue streams. Because if you NFT or if you have a digital piece, then you can sell it for the lifetime of whatever this piece is and constantly have a royalty as the creator, which was something that wouldn't necessarily happen all the time, right? If you sell one piece or a design, you put it out in store, you're selling it to an actual retailer or whoever, and you're not generating royalties still. So that's changed the game of fashion and this concept of creator economy. So I'm excited to see where it goes next, because a lot of people who weren't in digital are now exploding into the digital space and trying to figure out how else they can help and benefit.
So I don't know if I actually forgot to prompt you. I don't know if you can click to join me in this experience in the fashion show, because we'll do a bit of a walk around, and if you get there, you get there. If you don't, that's fine. What I wanted to say though about this fashion show experience is I walked into the lounge and there is a list of events, and it's actually showing both virtual events in this experience, as well as real world events in the real world. So Hyderabad, 25th of November, they had a fashion show there. 2nd of December, just the other day, they had one in Mumbai. The Gurgaon, they're going to be having one on the 17th. So they're using this virtual experience to now, and then kind of interleaving it with physical experiences, and there's a time between them. I'm sure if you went to those physical fashion shows, at some point they'd bring up this virtual experience as well and show folks. So interesting to see how real world experiences and virtual experiences can interplay like that.
Yeah, I'm working on getting to you, Greg, as well. And I think what I went into in September, I went into a virtual fashion show, and we were getting a preview of things that you wouldn't get a chance to see normally. And it was just like one of those things where you want to tell all your friends about it and you want to get them to all come. And so I think the concept of being not only a virtual space, but that you can, the shareability and the memorability of things like this are going to create a little bit more of an icon for a brand and a space. So a lot of brands have suffered from the last few years losing what an experiential part of their brand is, or a story behind their brand. We saw brands like Telfar who have spent some time thinking about like creating this whole concept of it's a unisex brand, and it was a non-gender brand. And so if you think about putting them in a space here where you can start to create digital pieces, this would, potentially change the game on a brand that's only in one space and has a certain amount that are allocated. So a lot of things now, especially in New York, and this is a Brooklyn brand, they will only put a certain number of pieces out. And so I think you can still do that in virtual spaces and see how it does, and then decide if you want to make a physical. So it's smart from a strategy standpoint on, building your business.
So I'm not going to wait around. The reason I thought we might get you in is because it's so lonely doing the catwalk with an audience of no one. So there's no one in here at the moment. But what we're going to do is we're going to end on a high, and I'm going to walk the ramp. So I'm going to go over and see if I can. There we go. So it's going to tell me. And then what it does is the spotlights come on, and I've got an audience of absolutely no one, which suits me fine because, to be honest, I shouldn't really be walking a catwalk. Oh, we got Julian. We've got our second cameraman's down there. I'll wave at Julian. Thanks for turning up, Julian. It's always good to have a renter crowd. But that's me. That's me having done my catwalk walk, and it was every bit as satisfying as I thought it would be. So I think that's all we have time for today, Sharon. I know that has been a very interesting discussion. If we took stock very briefly, so we looked at a number of different examples of experiences in the metaverse. I'll ask you one question. In terms of maturity of the metaverse, from what we've seen today, would you say we're running, walking, or still crawling?
We're still crawling. I think we talked about Decentraland, and we're under 1% in terms of us being even here, Greg. So yeah. It's a good time to get in, though. I always think if you want to be an innovator and if you want to be ahead, the more you test. I mean, Greg, how much did we learn working together on this?
Yeah.
And the space is still so new that brands are, still experimenting across all of them and figuring stuff out. So it's probably the best time to get in. Yeah.
So I agree with you. I was going to ask you the question, what advice would you have for business leaders that are wondering whether the metaverse holds any value for them? I mean, would you say they jump in? But I think you answered that question. Yeah. And I'd say, just again, us having walked around and experienced this, the great thing about this being so new is you can make a big splash, because the amount of competition is fairly low. So if you get a good enough experience going, you can make a pretty big splash and draw the audience and really engage with audiences in a way that isn't possible with other media.
Yeah, and I'd say looking at some of the brands, Greg, that have already gone in, Nike's done a lot in this space, and so a few people or a few companies are saying they're going to wait and watch a bit longer instead of going in. But you can always test in a smaller market, Greg. You don't have to be in one of the largest markets and put a whole bunch of money on it. You can test in a smaller market. Zepeto is one of the ones that's usually used for testing as a space. And then just doing simple things. I'd mentioned the 3 scenarios. Do you want to use a digital piece? Do you want to partner with a company, or do you want to build your own? The best thing is to start with a digital piece, a digital asset, and work on that and understanding how things are measured, and then move on from there.
And I think everyone was so enraptured by my walk in the catwalk that they forgot to ask questions. So I think we answered the one question we got. So I think we're pretty much ready to wrap. So Sharon, I have certainly enjoyed the journey. I will say that to you and the crew on our side, our producer Pam, our cameraman Vikesh and Julian, thank you for taking us on this walking tour. That was a pretty unique experience for the Sandbox. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm hoping our audience enjoyed it and learned something as well. But thanks very much, Sharon. Really appreciated you joining us today.
Thank you, Greg. A lot of fun, and I'll see you somewhere else. We're going to have to go to we'll pick Absolutely. Our top places that we want to travel to next, right?
Absolutely. All right, well, and thanks to the audience. It was great having you with us today. You can keep an eye on the Innovation Sandbox calendar for more episodes in the series. Until then, goodbye, keep well, keep innovating, and we'll see you all next time.